I didn't even bring my computer today. I'm like, there's nothing.
Got nothing going on. What are we on? 30-second delay in case I swear? Is that what this is?
Pretty much.
Really? Good. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our January 11th Littleton Planning Board meeting at 6 p.m. And I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, let's get right to the agenda. Board business, minutes of the prior meeting, October 12th, October 26th, December 4th, December 14th. Anybody have any questions or problems with those minutes?
Nope.
Having heard nothing, I'll entertain a motion to approve those for October 12th, October 2016, December 4th. What, didn't we meet in November?
Those were already done.
Okay. Anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bills? We got any bills? I'm trying to get.
Actually,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, hold on, just, I have a quick question. So on the date of December 14th, when we had an executive session, so how do we get those notes? How does that work?
There'll be separate executive session minutes drafted, and they don't get approved until after a significant amount of time.
Okay.
We can't publish them because that's why we went into.
No, I
executive
know
session.
that, but I know that we have to approve them at some point, so that's why I was wondering. Do we know what that significant amount of time is?
When they're no longer,
Court. So that's going to be
It's no-
6 months from now, because remember, we extended it till July or August, I think, is when the next court date is.
until they're no longer pertinent. I mean, it might be,
Well, with this thing, it might be years.
it might be a while.
Thank you.
So there are two bills, one for applying logo T-shirts for Cooper and Lucia, and one for,
We should get shirts.
There you go.
Little
I'll ask for it in the budget for next year.
Monogram shirts that say Littleton Planning Board on it, you know, except we're going to have our names on them.
Oh,
Yeah, I think, J. Crew or something, Tommy Hilfiger.
right, and the second bill is for Massachusetts, the planning director's 1 year dues for Cooper.
Okay.
It's a very good entry point into some of the regional planning issues and training opportunities.
All right, great, we're past that already. How about number C, peer review contract for Green International?
So Co and Jim Thorne reminded me that the peer review contract would lapse the end of this past December. And so they did send an updated contract. And I just would ask the planning board to go ahead and approve that. There's no funds associated with the contract itself, but it allows us to go through the regular process of peer review for each applicant paid peer review for each application that you choose to do so. And Co is here to meet you and answer any questions you might have.
Was there any change on this contract from
No.
last contract? Okay,
It's the same concept.
same concept.
So my question is, one of the things that was happening when I was first on the planning board about 5 years ago was that there was a representative from Green at each of the meetings that was relevant to the conversation. And so I know I would really appreciate it if your team would be flexible to be at the meetings, especially when there's going to be significant items on the peer review that need to be discussed, items especially when it says, it's the board's decision, and because sometimes there needs to be clarification, and if nobody is here, it sometimes lacks a little bit of information that we might need.
Yes. We will coordinate with Maren, and if there's a need, our staff should be present at those meetings. We will make sure that staff familiar with the, you know, who was involved in the review and familiar with the issue would be the meeting, yes.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to see the Reader's Digest version of the, reports. Sometimes too much is too much. We don't need, you know, I don't think the board, as long as you're comfortable with whether we're using plastic or ductile iron pipes or whatever those little details are, as you're comfortable with it, I don't think, we get glossed over by some of too much of the details sometimes.
Okay.
I think we're more interested in whether the drainage works, those kind of things. There is some stuff that obviously we have to weigh in on if we're comfortable with a zoning issue and things like that, but sometimes condensed.
Yeah, if I may, you know, I don't know the specific, you know, you're talking about, but we try to protect the best interest for the town and also town residents. So sometimes we feel like if the developer's proposing is not the best interest for the town, even small, we do make comments. So we just wanted you to know, yeah.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I think my perspective is that we can get smaller peer reviews as long as the applicants are doing the things that they need to be doing correctly the first time around. So
Right,
then
that's-
it'll be a smaller peer review.
Yeah, that's our, you know, point. We just want to make sure applicants do everything they're supposed to do, you know, to,
Well, some of it's interpretation, and
Oh, I guess so.
that's how we get into it. And when we have, 30-page peer reviews and 67 items and stuff, it gets a bit much.
Right, and when the timelines work out, that the engineers can meet and work out those details well before a planning board meeting, and there's opportunity for updated plans and then the back check, that's when it works best, but we don't always have the luxury of that timing, depending on when the board meetings are, when the applications come in, when the, when the responses are ready. But it's, overall, it's,
So is it
they're very
something,
thorough.
so from an efficiency standpoint then, is this something we should be looking at that says, well, the first round of peer review should be done among the applicant and Green International before it even comes to the board?
I absolutely agree with that. I think they should.
And often we will go that direction. It kind of depends on when the application comes in. As soon as the application comes in, I do send it to Green for a peer review estimate. If there's a question, and then it's up to the applicant to decide, do they want to go ahead and approve the peer review as per the scope, or do they want to talk about the scope with the board? So.
Yeah, no, they should. They should go walk through it. So if there's any, there's a million ways to do something. If you come from to, sure.
Yeah, I think if the timing can be aligned so that when the applicant is coming, that there's been a review and not sort of, well, we got comments from Green, but we haven't had a chance to comment back, and there's this whole back and forth, and I just feel like it consumes a lot of our time.
Right.
I agree.
Sometimes the applicants want to provide an update, at that point, and we've had that happen.
Okay. I just made, anybody else? I'm sorry I even asked it. See that?
I agree with, if we can get more of it done beforehand,
Yeah.
it's better.
Makes it easier.
Don't you think that's a function of the applicant just pushing for
Yes.
staple? And that should be on them. I mean, maybe at some point we just say, you're not ready yet.
Well, I don't think it's,
We
We've
do
done
that.
No, I know, but I mean, I think that as part of this discussion, it's part of the process of, there's nothing wrong with pushing. But it seems like a little prejudicial to the applicant to come to a meeting with, 58, peer reviews. That it might be in their interest to
I agree.
work with
Oh, yeah.
you to begin with.
Well, maybe we can change a policy then. If we don't even have one, maybe we should have one that says no applicant comes to us if they have more than, 20 or 25 comments.
Yeah, it's all interpretation. You have to work.
But the other thing is that we're somewhat flexible about scheduling an extra meeting if, if need be. So anyway.
I think the best thing is that they have to work it out amongst themselves before they duke it out in front of us.
yes, I heard, your concern,
Yeah.
and we try to at least, meeting, try to minimize the number of the, comments, provided we have time to coordinate with applicants, and applicant respond to our, comments, and we can work out, but,
Well, not to beat a dead horse, but
right.
sometimes you go into areas where there's nothing we can do, like one of the applications when we were doing the gas station had to do with the state and the roadway, and you kept throwing it back to the applicant, back and forth, and the applicant kept coming back to us and saying, it's not us, it's the state highway, we can't do anything about it. So that, you should know that, and rather than put it on there as a point, just understand that the state's involved, that it's the state issue, it's not the town of Littleton's issue. And I'm just saying that's the kind of stuff. And, the trees, whether the trees are gonna make it or not, that's not what we're really looking for from you. We're looking for drainage, safety, entrance, egress, how the project is built, because we have you do updates as it's progressing, but the other stuff is probably really our jurisdiction.
Right.
That's all.
Yes.
Good. Okay, I wasted too much time, I'm sorry. Community one-stop funding.
So
we're,
the
yeah.
board recommends that we
That
go ahead
we
and approve
extend,
the.
yeah,
extend the contract.
I got all the way there and didn't do it, right? Yes, I recommend.
Do you need a
that we
vote, Mark?
Yeah, you'll need something, yeah.
Sure.
Would help, sure.
Yep. I recommend that we extend the contract to Green for, what are they, on a couple of years at a time, or is it 1 year at a time?
I think the request was 12 months.
12 months?
Yeah.
another 12 months from January to next December 31st.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And just to add that, I know I, for one, am very grateful that we have Green International to be able to provide the services. I do always appreciate having that documentation and extra set of eyes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure working with you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much.
Community One-Stop Grant Round 25, 26.
Yep, so the state has just posted that the next grant round will launch on January 19th. So at that point, they'll post an updated timeline. Usually the application's deadline is not until early June, but they do have a pre-application process so communities can get feedback on project ideas. So to date, we haven't been great about defining all the grant potentials, potential grants and potential town projects, and prioritizing those. So I just raised that with the town administrator's office that, if we had a process to help us understand, what's going to be the big priority, and we can apply for any number of grants. Some communities get awarded 4, 5, 6 grants.
This is the outshoot of what started with the governor, with the first one. This is all those 18 or 19 different grant agencies. It's now called One Stop, correct?
Right. And there's, the big ones, of course, are the Mass Works, but Littleton also qualifies for housing choice grants, and extended the housing infrastructure. So
This is the one we just got $4 million. We got $4 million last year from. Right?
correct.
One of the largest.
And this is the one, if we don't pass this MBTA, that we won't qualify for any of
For
these.
any of those,
Right,
correct.
okay.
Okay. And this is the one where the governor has said that money will be available for housing projects. This is the $4.5 billion that they're going to fund it with if we want to do senior housing or affordable housing or mixed, all kinds of different kinds of housing.
Right,
This
so
is the-
defining exactly what programs the town is going
we're not-
for this upcoming year.
So we're not ready for it yet, but we should be working on it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What did you have in mind with these items? Update Littleton Common redevelopment potential, soft site study, housing choice grant, etc.
Yep, the soft site study, so I'm going to step back to the Littleton Common Revitalization Roadmap. One of the products that we got from that was from UMass Donahue Institute. They had done a worksheet that had based on the preferred zoning, the Village Common Form-Based Code, what could the town anticipate for economic development? What sites were ripe for redevelopment? That was done in 2018, 2019. Now that the landscape has changed, now that we will have town sewer to service the sewer, the sewer district, and now that the developments at Northern Bank and 550 King Street and 410 Great Road are on the horizon, how does that change the study that was done before? What could Littleton expect to see for economic development if these soft sites were redeveloped? And it also gets to the question that we've heard from a lot of business owners and property owners in the common district. Well, what can I expect to do based on sewer availability? So it'll wrap that into a study. And I had a good meeting with Rod Matamati from UMass Donahue Institute, and he's going to start drafting a scope of services. One of their, they'll work with the town on a scope of services to identify, what it is that the town is asking for, and they'll give us a cost estimate. And then at that point, the town will decide, was that something we can self-fund, or do we need to apply for a grant for that? And if so, then it'd have to go through, get the select board's approval to have that as one of the grant applications.
And this might be the time, since you brought up the sewer, I attended the sewer, they have every 3 months, progress reports, the meeting last night. I guess, and basically, boom, boom, boom. I mean, the treatment plant won't be online until the middle of 2025. But they are, as we speak, working with Weston and Sampson to identify future potential leach field sites. And I was there as a resident who hopes to connect to them, but I said, I'll put on my planning board hat. How's that going to work? I mean, are you, we're dealing with sites all the time that may or, maybe, anyway, they said that this is why they were saying that, well, we're probably going to have something in a few weeks about identifying certain sites, and they hope to find leach capacity for an additional 200,000 gallons, and which is, 2/3 of what the first phase will have. I mean, there were a lot of numbers being put around, but based on, there weren't many people there, but there were people there who were questioning the numbers, questioning the, the economic benefit and this and that. And I think we should, I think there's an explicit economic benefit to it, and let's make it explicit. I mean, the sewer guys aren't talking about property taxes. They're talking about, the money's there for this, it's going to be this much rate, which they haven't established them yet. There's different phases, et cetera, et cetera. They claim that in their first phase, there's enough capacity for all of the properties in the common. They did not give 410 Great Road any reserved capacity.
Mm-hmm. What about the redevelopment of the ball fields up at the school?
That's done.
So they got the extra 200,000 gallons up there?
No, they did not.
They did
No,
not?
they
Right,
are
but
hoping to get an extra 40,000 gallons up there. The 200,000 would be at some other site, and that's complete. And so right now, they're running water through that system to have data about the infiltration. They kept on saying the state is driving this, they're extremely conservative, and so we have to have, actual numbers before we can assert this. But they made it sound like that the sewage capacity vis-a-vis the common is not dire, and they made a big point of saying they did not give any reserve capacity to 410.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, and so the sewer department and chair of the Finance Committee were both on this call as well with
Okay.
UMass Donahue Institute.
Okay,
So,
good.
and some of it is based on questions that has come from the Finance Committee, is what,
Yeah.
you know, town is gonna have to pay for service for the town buildings. What can we expect in tax revenue from redevelopment of various sites?
So getting back to that, we still have a grant out with the governor's office? Do we still have like $6 or $8 million in infrastructure that's kind of hanging in limbo right now?
9.5 plus 4.
9.5 million. That's tied
Plus
to the
4.
MBTA communities as well.
So one of the things that I saw when I went to the site to look at the different projects that could be attained or that could be funded through this grant round, the housing production plan, I think that's something that hasn't been done in over 10 years, or about 10 years at this point. So I just wanted to get an understanding of, you know, when will that happen?
Communities are really, it's in their best interest to do housing production plans when you're below 10% AMI. On the subsidized, no, when you're below 10%
yeah.
on the subsidized housing
index,
inventory. It's a process the town can choose to go through, if, you know, if you decide to. It's not required.
Okay.
Jeff, did the sewer people talk about how much of the King Street, the IBM site is going to be, how much capacity they're assuming for that?
So they're assuming 157,000 gallons that's been reserved by Lopoli with a pretty large payment, I think 13 million or something.
But that's over 10 years.
Well, so it comes into play when certain uses are proposed, especially, not, the housing is obvious, the
You gotta set it aside right off the
Right.
bat.
Oh, yeah,
recreation
no, I
is obvious,
understand.
but there
Yeah.
are potential uses of the office build, the existing building, that may be water intensive. So, you know, it's just something we're gonna have to deal with. So then there are questions about, oh, do we have enough water? Well, you know, they assert, yes, that's not the issue. We didn't even, because there was so much else being talked about, I didn't ask them about the new well at Taylor Street. But we're dealing with that today. So I was sort of impressed with this whole thing, and this might come back to bite me when things don't work out, but I feel like there's been a, pretty credible effort to make this work.
They're getting their handle on it, in other words?
Well, and having seen them flail for 20 years, it's, and they made the point, not strongly, but they did make the point that this would not have been possible without 550 King. It simply would not have been possible. Because the costs are such, especially during COVID, the costs went crazy high, financing is up, everything's up, and that it's now a $50 million total project, which the town could not have undertaken. And I'm saying that because, we were part of
Right.
that. So, it was interesting.
Thank you.
There is one other item that I think related to this that was interesting. So, public infrastructure to support growth. So, with the 550 King Street project, they talk about being able to fund roadway or streetscape improvements, bridges, bridge and culvert repair. So, where does that lie in terms of what you've heard, Maren, about the streets surrounding 550?
So, yeah, so that's going to be a discussion that the town needs to have. No
So
question.
would it be useful then to be able to have a project related to this, get started with these dollars, if we were to?
It's not our money, it's the state. That everything around there is state highways, the redoing. of
I guess,
the
yeah,
intersection.
I
So,
didn't understand the question the same way Mark
so
did, so.
my question is, so yes, they're state highways, but can we do anything to prompt that work to happen? And
So I'm
can-
going to answer a little obtusely. I believe that Lupoli Companies understands and that the process will be open again for another Mass Works grant for additional improvements that will support development at 550 King Street, such as, and I think it's my understanding that streetscape improvements could be part of that. That was a lot of hedges on that statement I just made, but I think that's one of the directions that we might be headed on as a town on what applications should go in.
And the other thing is, we've asked 5-6 years ago about redoing the bridge, okay? And about the intersection. The intersection obviously has to be done, but it's a state intersection. They're gonna have, it's their land, they're gonna have to do it. We've asked them many times about it, and I know it's in there. And once they get going with the MassWorks grants and everything else, I'm sure that's gonna be part of the money for the bridge, for the intersection.
So related to these comments, there was also a Transportation Advisory Committee meeting this week, and it always comes up, where's the traffic study for 550 King?
Family
And
point.
my answer is, until there's a specific project, there's no traffic study. Maureen's answer is, this is a state, this is an MEP
Yep.
project, and they will, whatever is done for traffic will be done according to their
MEPA project.
NEPA projects. So, I would expect, though, this spring, when we begin to get the definitive infrastructure, designs, I mean, we need to,
The MEPA has to be going on at the same
Yeah.
time with that.
yeah,
Once they
but it's
start-
out of our hands.
It's MEPA.
So,
I wouldn't say it's out of our hands.
Okay.
I would say that the state will, the project, the development is big enough that it will require MEPA review. Traffic review will be a significant part of what the state reviews, because there's not a lot of other additional environmental impacts because of this development is on on parking lots. So the town will be able to have input to the MEPA review process, but the state will, MassDOT will drive that process.
So when you say we'll have input, is that through the developer or through MEPA?
Through the MEPA
Through MEPA,
process.
okay. So when
You always have that open in addition to, your site plan review.
When we did the point, same thing, same exact issue, it was state, 119 state. They did the MEPA process, we got to look at it, we got to voice our concerns or our comments, and we got a, as they call it, a front door mitigation plan, we got to look at all of that. We actually had Green look at it with us, we sent our responses back through the MEPA process back to the state. So that's when we'll get a chance to look at it. The state takes, the MEPA process is huge. I mean, it's all
So
the
there'll
intersections.
be a design, there'll be a comment period, we will comment on it.
Correct.
It'll go, okay. The other thing that came up at this meeting that people might be interested in is the state is soliciting neighboring communities to Route 2 for their comments about potential improvements.
Oh, geez, where do we start?
And with a focus on the Rotary in Concord. But there were some comments about even the 495 Route 2 interchange.
It's the worst one, one of the 10 worst in the state.
Well, the Rotary, yeah.
No, that one.
Oh, that one, okay. So, but anyway, I'm just saying this for your information, I don't know how that happened, how the comment, I actually specifically asked that question. Well, how will this, what's the structure for this comment? And there wasn't any, there was just a preliminary thing to out to Westminster. Like we're gonna start this process of, Route 2 comments.
So I kind of want to go back to what I mentioned about this being about public infrastructure being one of the items that could get funded. I get what you're saying about these being state roads, but don't forget, there's Stevens Street, there's Goldsmith, there's Jennifer, there's White Street. All of those streets are going to be really affected by traffic, Meeting House Road. And so I think it's a little short-sighted of us to think that it's just those two state highways and that they're going to come in and fix all of that, because those others aren't. Those are our town roads. And so to be able to bring in somebody who can help us establish early on what we should be doing, I think will really go a long way toward ultimately figuring this out so it works to
But
the
that's what
towns.
Lauren was saying earlier, that we would be involved in that.
Well,
No,
no,
we-
but
but-
Anna's saying we should be proactive and actually make plans.
Isn't that part of the Littleton
gotta-
revitalization?
Well, but it's got to be paid for by something, and it may be able to be paid for by a grant.
We can't do anything with those until we know what the streets that they're gonna connect to are even gonna look like. We're kind of.
Well, but could we have in place some, I mean, I agree with you, it's not obvious, what the pathway is, but I think the goal, like for instance, Rick, at the very beginning, showed us, and when he gets excited about something, and he said, oh yeah, and we'll do, we could do this at the intersection to bring people, pave, whatever in the road to bring people over to the common and blah, blah, blah. Well, that could go by the wayside if we don't,
It's gonna go by the wayside if the state doesn't approve.
oh, the state
But this,
can approve
but this
that
is
stuff.
preliminary right now. We can't do anything right now. We don't have any information.
Well, why can't we say we would like to apply for a grant? There are major, development at this location in our town. We would like a grant to have not a traffic engineer, but like a landscape architect or someone who's looking at the aesthetics of things and how things actually work.
Sure.
So, Maren, can we do that? Because we're running behind, so
Yeah.
can we do
So,
that?
Well, it'll be up to the select board to help
Okay.
prioritize the various grant applications to the state. And that's one reason I bring it up now is because it will be a longer conversation. And-
We should at least put the ask in. Actually, I see people out in the audience, I just want to make sure if the public hearings for Taylor Street for the adult marijuana, that's been continued, if anybody's here for that one. And the 550 Newtown Road, the major commercial, industrial, the storage, that's been continued. If there's anybody, I see people back there that might be sitting there. I know they're not here for me. But those are, if you're here for that, they've both been continued to, do we even have a date?
Well, the next meeting is February 1st.
February 1st, okay. All right, moving on with our, do you want to do member input, or do you want to hold off, or well, let's do member input now?
I think I've given my input.
Member input on Northern Bank, I see they put a fence up.
They put a fence up, then they took it down because they put it up on town land, and then they put it back up again.
Hager Homestead, they seem to be moving right along.
So
with
on
the site.
Robinson Road, do you recall who is supposed to be the person that gets contacted if there are construction trucks that are in places they shouldn't be? Is that the building inspector, or who is that?
Well, it's- If you have a complaint, it always goes to the building department.
Building department?
And actually, the redoing of the fence was a result of a neighbor.
Okay.
Hager Homestead, got the windows in the old part, they put the siding on. They paved it while the weather was nice. That's about all I know about that.
Well, we do have an update on the affordable unit. Maren, do we have that information to be able to share out about the affordable units at Hager?
Well, they were getting prepared to close on the, one of the 150% AMI units.
Well,
And
that's
you-
good.
And you had said that it was a Littleton residence.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, we finally get one.
don't say finally, we've gotten quite a few.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
but I mean Littleton, for a Littleton resident.
And I'll reiterate, don't say finally, because there have been a number of Littleton residents who have gotten into, have been able to purchase affordable units in town.
Oh, not specifically the Hager Homestead,
Right.
some other, okay.
Right, well,
Okay. Next on the agenda, the MBTA Communities Multifamily Zoning.
Actually, Mark, I'm sorry, but I did have member input,
Oh, okay.
so.
I didn't hear
thank
you. Go ahead. Member input about what?
So the Affordable Housing Trust acquired the Durkee Farmhouse on December 28th, and so we had our first meeting a couple days ago to determine its fate, and we're starting out by asking Conscom to review the environmental aspects of it, and then we'll revisit the septic issue, really to get a better understanding of how many units we could actually get at the particular site. So we've done that. And then Maren and I met informally with Mr. Cataldo to speak about senior housing. And then we met with the new town administrator.
Okay.
Yep, to be able to talk about some of the big projects that are happening here in Littleton. Got to talk about how we work as a planning board, and, we have his support, so.
You couldn't have put that after the MBTA Communities? You wanted to get that before that one?
I'm just going with the flow of the agenda,
It
Mr.
wasn't on
Chair.
there. I was good. Mine was next. Just kidding. No, that's fine. Yes, to echo on that, yeah, we met with Mr. Duggan. Told him the projects we had in front of us, brought him up to speed, invited him to our meetings in the future. Must-see TV. And, yeah, so I think he's pretty much, and plus Ryan, I'm sure, has filled him in too, so yeah.
Have we heard anything from the state, from the letter?
Well, yeah, that's the MBTA, that's
Okay.
gonna be the next thing. I was trying to get
Okay.
that, but Anna interrupted me first.
Okay.
All right, are
What
we
have
on
we
to
heard?
MBTA communities?
Sounds good?
Okay, so we did get a letter from the state, and we got turned down by the state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gee, surprise, surprise.
So that means
But are we
it's,
going to actually get to see the letter response from the state?
as far as I know, a written response has not come back yet. What I had was last Friday, I had a meeting with staff from Housing and Livable Communities. There are going to be no waivers for any community for requiring some units with zoning for multifamily housing within a half a mile of the commuter rail station. There was a clarification from staff that I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit on this one. We thought that 20% of the total units needed to be within a half a mile of the commuter rail station. It's 20% of the minimum number of units. So rather than thinking we had to add 20%, well, okay, I just said that. So we could zone for 10 acres and 150 units on that site, on a 10-acre site near the commuter rail station, rather than having that number creep up like it did the last time to 200 and some units.
So 150,
Yeah, if you have a, right.
right.
Right. And there is, so that gives a little more leeway in the acreage that you can consider near the commuter rail station, and that'll impact the types of units that could be allowed there. So it was good to get that clarification.
when you say the type of units, does that mean that they'll expand it for us so that if we wanted to do not all apartments, we could do condos and things like that? Is that what you're?
Well, when we were, they didn't expand it. They clarified that we didn't have to have more than 100, zone for more than 150 units,
So there'd be less density then,
correct.
because you'd have 10 acres and 150 units versus 10 acres and 200.
Well, we were,
plus.
one of the issues at town meeting was, well, I thought it was 150, but now you're talking that it's, 220 or whatever. And that was confusing to town meeting, was confusing to us because of this algorithm thing. And so that's a positive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So that means it's back on our plate, so we need to discuss what's the next step.
Surprise, surprise.
Wow. you know, so we have did we get the money for Innis?
Let's see, the planning board requested and select board supported and finance committee voted to $30,000 reserve fund transfer. So the planning board has that available for professional services for MBTA communities.
Okay, so we have that in place, so we
Yeah.
can start using it. So,
But the proposal, did it get changed after we provided those comments at the December meeting, or?
I asked for an update and I wanted to hear where the board wants to head.
Okay. Thank
so
you.
what do we want to do?
Well, we obviously, unless we want to lose all of those grants, is that all those grants? Yeah, then those aren't the grants, that's the agenda. So then we obviously need to present it again at Springtown meeting and hopefully it will pass.
Well, how do we want to present it? How do we want to move forward with it?
Well, I think we have to get Emily's input, right? So when are we due to hear from her? We have to sign a contract, right?
Right, and based on,
So I think we have to
How
sign
you
a
wanna-
contract, right?
based on how the town wants to approach it, then we'll
That's
ask
what I'm
to
asking. How do
update the
we want to
scope.
approach it? Do we want to look at other sites? Do we want to continue with the site we are? We need to start somewhere, you know? Do we want to look at, you know, there are potentially 6 sites, some of them,
I thought there were only 3.
I think there's only 3, but somebody else thinks there's
Emily
more than
identified 6 in her proposal.
3. Okay, but you can't rezone a site that's 40 acres. And we can't,
Right.
I'm just simply saying,
Well,
that's
you
what she did,
could,
that's
but
all.
you'd have to supply
Right.
5 million units.
Right.
Right,
Well,
right, so,
So if we looked at additional sites, it would make sense to limit it to the 3 that we.
yes.
We went
Okay.
through the whole public
Yes.
Okay.
hearings
Yes.
and all that stuff.
so the
Yes.
3 sites. Well, one of, it's only 2. Because
It's
one-
really only 2.
It's only
the-
2.
The one would be at the corner of Foster and Taylor.
Right.
Well,
I
and
think it would be
we've-
helpful, given that she identified the 6, that she just identifies what those other 3 were and why they were not selected. That's it.
We can do that. We can do the math. We're not going to bring a proposal to the town meeting that has 300 units on it.
I agree.
So then why do we need to bring it, well, we can tell
Well,
them.
why weren't these identified in the previous go-round?
Because they were too big. We have to have 10.
So why do we need to go back?
That's
We don't.
what we don't. That's,
We're in a time frame
Right,
here.
and why do we want to waste money?
right.
I mean, let's, we've already wasted
It's-
enough time and this
Okay, so
town's money.
let me ask this. So 6 are identified. Do you know what those 6 were?
Sure.
I'm sure if we go back and look at the many studies,
I
yeah,
can
I'm sure we
absolutely
can
tell you
figure
what
it
the
out.
6 were. The Gutierrez site is one, the Monarch site on the other side. I don't know where the 3rd one is on that side. I don't think there is a 3rd one on that side, but correct me if I'm wrong. Then you have the 245 Foster Street. Then you have the site right next to it, which is the GID property, which is not interested in at all being redeveloped, the 10
They've never
acres.
been asked. We don't know that.
I did ask, and they said no.
But I want to step in here. It doesn't matter if they're interested in redeveloping it or not. We can still zone.
How can you?
You can still zone. That's happening all over the state now, is that the existing properties are being zoned for multifamily. It doesn't mean it's going to be accomplished. It doesn't mean it's going to result in a project.
It doesn't mean the state's going to go along with it if it's not.
That's
if it's-
possible. I don't know about that.
Right. That's kind of my point. If we're
I
gonna-
just don't think that's a suitable,
site
site
anyway.
for
But
us.
all right, so then you have the other one up at the prom.
All I'm saying is this. I just want Emily to identify them. That's it. That's it.
But we
Okay.
are, I think we've
And
been, I think we've
And
been at
then,
this enough.
and
to know
then
what the
to
sites
focus
are.
in on
To
the
identify, yeah, but to go back through.
Right, and then-
you know,
Well,
qualifying them.
okay, when you ask that question, you're looking for the board to consider all of those sites again?
No.
Well, I think we need to say, okay, these were the 6. This is the process that Light and Water took when they were looking at their various sites for different sewer facilities, right? Is you identify all the sites, and then you say, this is why this one wasn't picked. This is why this one wasn't moved forward on, et cetera, so that it's public and transparent. That's all I'm asking.
We
Why,
did that.
well, haven't we already
So
done
that,
that?
We've
right,
done that.
the planning
Yes.
board,
Okay, fine, show me where the list is.
I think the planning board did that during the discussions.
Yes.
And you would like to see it
All right.
listed, is what I'm
So-
hearing.
so-
God,
Anna
it's
needs to
like
see it
pulling
again.
teeth. you know?
Pulling teeth.
For transparency.
Anna.
Come on.
It already
I'm just
exists.
saying- I'm just-
Because of viable, don't get me started.
So,
Why are we pulling teeth now,
So-
Anna?
so,
Yeah, don't
Yes.
even go there.
so.
Yes,
That
why?
would be a request of Emily, okay? All right, so in terms of my input as to proceeding, we still would like to be able to get input from the public. So we had talked about a survey.
No,
No,
I am
survey's-
against that.
No, survey's too late.
So if town residents would like to be able to provide input, what are we going to do with
They
that?
have already provided
And
input,
we have public
over
public meetings
5
on it,
years' worth of input, Anna.
you know.
Maybe we should table this discussion.
No, we
You know?
move forward.
We have to have some attitude. We have to hire Emily.
Yes.
We have to have some
So let's do
parameters
that.
about what we're going to be looking at. But you seem to think that we should start over again.
I'm not thinking that we should,
Everything that you've said says we start over. We look at 6 sites, we go through a public meeting process. I think it might be appropriate to have a public meeting when we've got the info on if we propose an alternate site to educate people. I don't have a problem with that. But,
What about this? Can I throw something out there since we're kind of both at loggerheads? Let's be realistic about this. There are 2 sites we're talking about. There's only 2.
right.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 of us. Why don't we hold a public meeting, 5 of us jump into a car and go to both those sites and show us what the difference, because I think Anna's contention all along is if you put it at the end of the highway, end of Taylor Street, people are gonna go down Taylor Street through the Common or jump on 495 to go to the post office. Why don't we drive that and all of us sit in the car together and see if that is even viable? Because that's the only difference between the top of Taylor Street and 245 Foster Street is the impact that it's gonna have on the residents on Foster Street. And if they're not, if you put it at the top of Taylor Street and they're not gonna go down Taylor Street or down 495 to go in, if we can show that, if we can demonstrate that, then there's no difference. Then we put it at 245 Foster Street because it's a vacant lot. It's right next to the train station. It's in walking distance.
Well,
I would suggest
245 Foster Street, you know, because we're still, we're behind.
Oh, we're way behind.
Yeah, and there may be, you know, industrial
Well, that's what's coming
units there,
forth
yeah.
now.
So we may only have one site. So maybe, just to speed this up, maybe we just need to hire Emily, right? Let's hire her. We've got $30,000 and
Okay.
have her.
Could we say in her contract to look at one additional site?
No, we don't even need to put that in the
Well, there
contract.
has to be a scope of services
Yeah.
that we're
Right.
I mean, she's
expecting.
gotta-
So let's just do the 3.
And as I recall, the amounts were such that absent starting over and a townwide, survey process, it was in the 20s.
Yeah.
Right, so the discussion you had with the select board was the scope of services that she had presented, plus a 2,700 for public outreach for survey. And so they all came in just under 30,000.
Okay. I mean,
So,
we need to get started.
Okay. So
And
let's,
if we end up some other place, we need more money, I would imagine we can get more money.
so let's schedule her for February 1st. Okay? We have to keep the ball rolling. We have to keep moving along. We'll look at Foster Street. We'll look at the properties on Foster Street.
Well, and to be
That's right.
clear, this is my wondering if we should go forward with resubmitting the previous proposal and going through this planning process to look at an additional, an alternative site. Is there any way we could bring, an either or to town meeting, or would we have to, among ourselves, decide what to promote?
I think we asked that, and I think we have to come with one. We
You make a
cannot do it
recommendation.
either or.
I think that was ultimately the purpose of why I've been saying we needed a survey. And Lisa, you said at the December meetings that you were on board with a survey, so now
I never said anything about a survey today.
you're right, not today. Right. So here's the thing. In order for us as a planning board to get public input, we need to ask people for that public input, right? And so how are we going to get it?
Didn't we do that?
We have. We had a meet.
And the only people who showed up were Foster Street.
Foster Street residents.
We
Yeah,
know
like
what
five
their,
of them.
we know what their
Like
attitude
five.
is.
Right. That was what I.
Anna,
So-
what is your understanding of that process?
So my understanding of the process is that it's outreach to the community. When we did the original master plan, we had so much different outreach in terms of different times, different opportunities. Nope, this time around, it's this way. You have to come to this planning board meeting and that's it.
You seem to once again have forgotten that we have been studying this for 5 years. All right, I am not going to bring up the
people-
humongous,
People
book.
have said that, you know what?
Because they have
did-
short memories. So you just want to spend more town money again to reinvent the wheel.
No, that's not it.
Yeah.
We,
I just truly believe that this board, I don't know if all the members feel that way, but that this board does not want to get input from the public.
we've had
Oh,
public
my
meetings.
God.
That is-
Anna, you know what? You've got a lot of nerve.
That's wrong. We've had public
I
meetings.
also, we've been undergoing a lot of planning efforts in the last couple of years. We've had the Open Space and Recreational Plan Committee, we've had the bicycle and pedestrian thing, there may be more. All of these things had multiple public. Now, I just want to say.
Go ahead.
Being in the meetings that's promoting all these, or that's, sort of involved in all these things, it is a constant refrain, how do we get people engaged? And there's no answer. There are, Park and Rec has done, the QR codes, like the hazard mitigation. How many responses have we had on that?
100, and MAPC was thrilled.
Correct, and so did
100.
did we do anything
And how much
like
did that
that?
cost?
Wait a second.
$70,000?
But 100 is certainly better than the 8 that Mark keeps throwing in my face.
No,
So
8
from
people
that
showed up?
standpoint, if we have additional outreach mechanisms, maybe we would get additional input. And
I'm
this
willing
board
to
just
put
refuses to
I'm
do
willing to
that.
put the outreach thing for the future, for future discussions. For this
But
discussion,
not this project.
no, I'm saying related to this project. We gotta get going, Anna, because we
I know
screwed up
that,
at town
and
meeting.
I'm
No,
the
we
one
didn't screw
and
up.
I'm the one in December who was prompting this, and we could have had something put together, but you guys didn't want to do it at the December
That was
meeting.
3 weeks ago.
Let's take a step back.
It was
We were
December
also waiting
14th.
for a letter, from a response on the letter.
Right,
We
and
didn't
I said
have
we
any
can be
information,
proactive and try to
Anna.
have something
Well,
ready.
Stop, both of you. Let's take a step back. We just did 550 King Street. We had public outreach. We had people come to our meetings. It's no different. And 550 King Street was a lot more intense than this is. And yet we didn't have all the stuff that you're talking about. We didn't send flyers out. We didn't have bulk mailings and everything else. People came, the people that came that were interested in did. Most people make their decisions on town meeting floor, which is where they're gonna do it here, again. We've had public meetings. If they don't come to the meetings, we can't do anything about that. Okay, we can't. We hold a public meeting, we let people know about it, we do the best we can with it. You had 8 people show up.
Park
8
and Rec, as Jeff pointed out, had a lot of people at the library to be able to provide input. Other groups have done it. The QR codes are really helpful.
I want to
Again,
emphasize, it was not a lot. It was maybe 25 people in addition to the staff and the committee and everything. That was the most well-attended. It was nice. It was really useful. But
so,
this is a little different. This is not open-ended. This is not
We're under
asking
attack.
people for their wish lists and what would they like to see.
right, so maybe by the time we, have whatever activity it is, and we have X number of sites, so ask them. Jeff, you just said, can we go to town meeting with 2 different options? And I'm saying the exact same thing, except I'm saying do it earlier before we get to town meeting.
I reject that because the people who come to meetings aren't necessarily the people who come to town meeting.
Can we just
people
get
who come to-
Emily to
Yes.
look at both, to look at the 3 sites? Let's start with
Okay,
that,
we've spent
okay?
enough time on this. It's obvious.
Yeah.
4/5 of the planning board thinks one thing and 1/5 thinks something else.
I don't
So
know what
let-
Bartlett thinks.
We, you know what?
Well, I mean, there is, public input has happened. I also think that as we represent the town, we've been chosen to do the planning. And it's our responsibility to come up with something that we can present.
We've done that once.
We've done that once,
We
now
have
we
to
have
do
to
it
do it
again.
again. And we
Yeah,
have to
maybe we do a little
figure
better
out what
job.
went wrong and
Yep.
what we can fix.
We know what went wrong.
Okay, so anyway, so let's get Emily here. Let's reschedule this for the 1st. We've beaten this to the ground. Hopefully there were more than 2 people watching this tonight, but anyway. It's time to move on. Let's, does anybody have 10 minutes of public input they want to talk about? Hopefully not. I think we've done enough.
George isn't here, so we're good.
There's nobody here, okay.
Geez, surprise,
All right, so
surprise.
let's back on the agenda. We're running very late, and I apologize.
Mr. Chair, do you understand that when you say stuff like that, it really,
What?
it's really in poor taste
What?
to our residents?
When I say what? What are you chastising me for now?
Let's, Anna, can we just move on with the agenda, please, and
Yep,
stop with
let's
the
move
little,
on.
constant yammering?
6:15, stormwater permit review, Taylor Street Wells, water main extension. Thank you.
Good evening, Aaron Guatzaloka with Weston and Sampson, and here again tonight on behalf of the Littleton Water Department regarding the Taylor Street Well project.
Okay, so we did get updated site plan set and the peer review back check. I drafted a decision for the planning board's consideration and included those items that were left up to the planning board's recommendations and the recommended conditions of approval in that draft decision. Was so I don't know where the board is on this, but they responded to the peer review comments.
Everything all set with Green?
Yeah, they've signed off on the
Okay.
revisions we made and our responses to their comments.
So
Cool.
then, anybody want to discuss the conditions of approval, or do you want to just move it forward? And
Could we go over any conditions? I mean, we don't need to do every detail, but.
Yeah, so, so we've got general conditions, the work will be done in accordance with Light and Water Department specs. If there's, conditions that have to be met before issuance of a building permit, and conditions relative to construction activity and long-term operation and maintenance. And these capture those items that Green recommended as conditions of approval, including testing of the detention basin sites, infiltration basin sites, but I believe that's already occurred anyway, so
Yeah, we were out there a few weeks back.
yeah, we'll just,
We'll be submitting, formally the results of that
right, so we'll
soon.
if we include, if we just keep it in the draft decision, then we'll back check that those are available, before the building permit issues.
Sure.
anything else? I mean, we're asking the agency that usually oversees most of the conditions of approval for most of the sites we work at to make sure that they're doing their own site properly, so it's kind
And
of-
if I recall at the last meeting, you went over the you went over the couple of issues that Green had, that you were back and forth on, with them. So I believe that the planning board has heard that discussion.
So I think everything's in place.
I'm good.
I close
I don't have any comments.
the hearing, vote it.
I move we close the hearing on the
I
Taylor
second
Street
it.
also.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the special permit with the conditions that are set forth within.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Good luck.
you. Thanks. Good night.
Oh, we're almost back on schedule now. Okay, 245 Foster Street, the preliminary subdivision, two-lot industrial subdivision. Sorry for the delay.
It's okay, Mr.
I
Chair.
thought there's
Good
not a
evening,
lot
Mr.
going
Chair,
on.
members of the board. For the record, Christine Hung, attorney from Reamer and Bronstein. With me tonight, I have attorney Robert Buckley, also from Reamer and Bronstein, and Robert Long of SNS Foster, the property owner. We are before you tonight on an application for a preliminary subdivision. This is a relatively straightforward application. We are creating 2 lots off of the subdivision way. There are no waivers that we are requesting, so we're looking to move forward to file our definitive, but for you to seek any comments that you might have so that we can incorporate it into our definitive plan. In addition, if there are any other town board comments that we can incorporate as well. So we can answer any questions that you might have. Oh, about, you want to say something?
For the record, Robert Buckley, Raymond Bronstein. As you know, this is a preliminary subdivision, and the reason for it is to preserve our rights, because under Massachusetts law, a preliminary filed, the definitive filed within 7 months of the date of the preliminary preserves the zoning for essentially 8 years. Our client has worked with the town in excess of 5 years to try to address this. They have spent an inordinate amount of money to cooperate with the town. If we're going to embark, which my client is willing to do, to continue the discussion with respect to the MBTA communities, they have to protect themselves for what could conceivably happen. And as you know, we essentially freeze the industrial zoning, which preserves our rights. That doesn't mean you can't waive it. You can waive a subdivision freeze at any time, but it's prudent practice of law. A subdivision is nothing more, a preliminary subdivision plan is nothing more than a consultation document to say, okay, this is what we're thinking, this is how we're going to come in. We're asking for no waivers on this, but is there anything that you would like to comment on? You could approve it, deny it. It really has no legal effect. But if you have anything you'd like to add, I would like to make a point, though, if I could, through the chair.
Absolutely.
The comment earlier about timing, and I think, Mr. Yates, you were focused on that. It is substantial for this town. You have this year to go to town meeting, rezone property, and it's not just rezoning it. You have to get it approved by the state. And the state is taking months to look at it because the state has figured out a lot of communities are zoning property that can't be built upon or is basically, we zone the property, we're in compliance. They're looking at all the issues now, and they're analyzing them, and they've rejected communities based applications. There was recently one, I think, I can't recall the name of it, I think it was the last couple of weeks, where they said, it's not real. And discussions I've had with the state, it's a bad policy to allow communities to, under the guise of creating housing, zone property that everyone knows will never happen. Who are we fooling?
Yeah.
So, and here's the danger. I was very impressed, and I compliment the town, the board, when I saw all the grants that you're applying for. If you don't have it approved by the year end, the way it's written, you're not in the next round of financing. And you might say, well, we'll get into the next one. Here's what happens. You get out of a round of financing, you go to the back of the line, the next round. So timing is critical. So you can decide what you want. We're just going to protect our rights. And again, Our client is very willing to work with the town to do something that satisfies the policy objectives, is well-conceived. I think they've assembled a good team, present company excluded, and they've worked very hard, and our instructions from them have been, we want to work with the town. I think, Robert, you're from the town? And they, over the last 5 years, have shown that willingness. So, it's a preliminary subdivision. I'm here to answer any questions you may have on them, but it's, we would take it and go into a definitive plan, which has to be filed within 7 months of the filing of the preliminary.
Okay. Does the board have any questions or concerns?
I have two questions. Number one, how does this relate? It seems to me that this is the same as the one that how does this differ from what we saw?
There may be some minor additional details.
But it's essentially the same
Yeah,
concept.
what you can do, once a subdivision is approved, you can move the internal outlines of the A&R plan. So
Yeah.
you need the 10 acres, we understand that. This is how we would conceive of if we were going to lot this parcel for separate development, because the definitive should have some relevance or connection to what the preliminary looked like, so it won't be exactly the same as that.
I mean, when I look at this drawing, there are a few, there is some additional information. There's the wetlands and the conservation, which is useful because it looks different looking at that than a big empty space. Now, the second question I have for you, in your, since you are dealing with this in a global scale, what does the state constitute? How do they determine an unrealistic project?
Well, there have been instances where the parcel is entirely wetlands.
Okay, that's obvious.
Yeah, and there have been instances where communities have rezoned productive industrial or commercial buildings that are adding to the tax revenue of the town, and everyone knows you're not taking that building down to build housing. The topography, they'll look at all those issues, and it's not a quick process, which is the danger. When was your town meeting? May?
May.
So May, by the time it gets into the Attorney General, you submit it, you're going through the summer months, it's going to be vetted, it's going to be approved. You're pushing against the calendar, and you're in a difficult situation because you have a commuter rail station. And I would submit, from a zoning, planning, policy standpoint, I've never seen anything so ideal as transit-oriented development as this site.
I would agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
I look at it and I say,
Most of us agree with you,
I
so,
look at
I
that. I mean, I did a
you,
major project in the town of Ashland years ago. The same thing. You eliminate traffic. You eliminate. People can come home on the weekend, park their car, and just stay there. You want to go on a commuter rail? You walk down, get on the rail, and go into Boston or whatever. But that's your call. But there are ramifications, and everyone, if you haven't been following the financial press, all the communities, the pandemic, what do they call it, the ARPA money or whatever, everything's drying up. Communities are struggling to get tax revenue. So to the extent that you do anything that negates your opportunity to be a vibrant, developing community and where people want to be, it's gonna have ramifications in the long term.
so what do we need to do here?
We just need to approve the, we can.
And if you have any, you can deny it, you can approve it, you can tell us what comments you have, if you
This
have
is
any.
just the procedure.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Do you have any other questions? Since we're getting a free dime out of we're not gonna have Emily, do you have any? questions?
You don't know how true that is, because I told Mr. Long that this one's on me.
So, I just have one more question, and I've
Yeah.
been hammering this, and I'm just following up on what Jeff said. I've said all along, and Delise was kind of agreeing with me over there. If you have a building that's viable, that's paying rent to the town, that's worth $20 million, the state's going to look at that and say, we're not going to let you knock a $20 million building down. It makes no economic sense, and start all over to put a $20 million housing project in there.
No, I think the analysis would be a little different. I think the state is going to look at it and say, our policy here is to try to encourage the development of housing in this Commonwealth. And if you delve into the weeds and look at the statistics of the number of people who are leaving the Commonwealth, And, you know, you can't turn the ship around in the Mississippi that quickly. You know, if you lose 2.5% a year, which I think was the last number I saw, and they're going to other states, where are you going to replace this workforce, the economic development?
Right.
And one of the reasons is housing. So I think the analysis would be, if I'm the state, saying, we have this policy. As I said to the lieutenant governor, I sat on a panel with her, it's a stick and a carrot. We will encourage you as a community to develop and think outside the box and create housing, particularly those housing that we have invested in transit, mass transit to service. If you don't do it, you're not going to benefit from the discretionary funding that we have to help you encourage economic development. And communities are free to say, we don't want it. We don't want the grants. We don't need them. We don't want them, and so be it. But if you think that the state's not going to look at it and figure out quickly that you're engaging, and I'm not saying the town of Littleton is doing this, but they're going to look at communities and say, this is not real. No one's going to build here. There's streams, there's all sorts of limitations. Why would we say, good job, and then when someone comes to try to permit, you say you can't build it? Who benefits in that scenario? And if I'm a lawyer, I'm not a politician, but if I'm a politician, I would look at the politician and say, you do realize you've been had, you know, right? So, you know.
So the short answer is the state is looking for real projects.
The
point of this is to create housing.
Viable sites.
Yeah,
Well,
they
and
look at
think
it.
about it, they're gonna look at Littleton and say, oh gee whiz, guys, you've got vacant parcel of land right here next to the transit, you know, which is, of course, what we've been proposing, so.
Right. And the analysis is, this type of, and I would submit, go to anyone, there's a big one in Ashland, there's a number in the suburbs, you don't want to do urban reviews. Go sit in a parking lot, one of these places, they don't generate a lot of traffic, particularly now where people work from home. You come on site and you have amenities on site, you have the ability to take the train into the Boston or any other stop along the way. And communities are doing this, and they're trying to think it through and do it right. So, but the timelines are intense, particularly since you have a commuter rail station, which puts more pressure on you. You're not an adjacent community where you might have a little more flexibility. But you have a commuter, and the state has invested in putting a MBTA station in a community for the sole purpose of eliminating traffic congestion and creating economic activity. And to let it just, you know, maybe we do.
You know that one of the town meeting comments was, oh, let's move the train station.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense. Anyway.
Okay.
Is there anything else relevant to this, or do we want to vote on it? Do we want to send it?
yeah, let's
Anyone
vote
have
on
any
it.
questions? Any questions? Anna, do you have any questions about this? Violet?
I do appreciate and I'm passionate about the policy, because I do believe in housing, because it's going to ultimately hurt the state. I'm not advocating for the project. You're free to determine where you want to put the housing, but I look at it, all the stars align on a site like this with a commuter rail
You're
station.
preaching to the choir.
So, just so that the public is clear in terms of this preliminary subdivision.
Yep.
So, what is going to be placed on here, as is?
Don't know, but we'll have the right to do commercial buildings there. Whatever your zoning allows today, we're going to freeze it for the next 8 years.
Right, so this
if
is
you think you
under
can
the
stop it
industrial
by going in
zoning.
on your own and rezoning it to whatever, even the MBTA communities, that's why we said when we first came here, we want to work with you. Because even if you rezone us to the MBTA community site, good for you, we don't have to do it. 'Cause
So
we
this
pay-
is still zoned industrial, and so it remains zoned industrial until,
Either we waive it or someone rezones it, but by doing this, we're freezing the zoning for 8 years. So the town is free, as someone said earlier, you rezone property all the time, and the town has that right to do so. But you can't appropriate the rights that exist today. So when we go through the definitive, What is shown on the definitive plan, the land shown on the plan will have the same zoning, as will be governed by the zoning in effect on the date we filed that preliminary plan, which I think it was in October or? October 30th. So for the next 8 years, whatever the zoning in the town of Littleton was on October 30th, that will be the applicable zoning for that parcel. We can waive it, we can change it, but we have certainty then.
So with the October 30th, which allowed us to go to town meeting with a proposal for that site. Thank you. I mean, that's a viable site. That wouldn't exist without that, without
great
this
site.
subdivision. Whether, as you said, whether we choose it for housing or not, the subdivision allows us to really credibly propose that site.
Yep.
And you don't have to do that.
And even if we freeze the zoning, my client has made it clear to me, perhaps I've listened, and I don't mean this in any negative way, I've listened to the discussions for a number of meetings that I say, you may spend more money and time and effort, and they may do the same thing to you, but my client says, I'm willing to do that. I mean, I think it's a good, well-conceived project.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. So,
Somebody, it's
which I do, so thank
Do you want to vote it, or do you want?
Yeah.
you told me you weren't going to speak.
Okay. We're just about done.
Robert Long, 245 Foster, or 30 Howard Ave, Littleton. 43 years living in Littleton. The only thing I would like to say is, when we bought the property, it was industrial. We were fine with it being industrial. We were approached by the Littleton Station Area Committee, asked to consider doing residential. Once we were asked that, we looked at the project, we thought it was the best thing for the town. We drank the Kool-Aid, we were really interested in doing it, and we've given it our best shot. We accept whatever the town wanted to do or doesn't want to do, it's fine with us. We have to protect ourselves here with industrial, but we just always thought that was the best use of the property in the town's interest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to vote to
Yeah.
approve the preliminary
Yep.
industrial subdivision there?
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second it.
I'll do it by roll call. All those in favor, Bartlett,
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Anna?
Why by roll call?
So that, by vote, but by voice, one at a time rather than.
I know, but we don't do that very often.
This is a zoning kind of thing. I thought it was a little more important.
Maybe we can get clickers, like the town meeting clickers.
Do you
So I
want-
said aye, so
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
And I'm a
Yes.
yes.
Thank you very much for your time and the indulgence for me to get on my soapbox.
Thank you for it. Sorry that it was a little convoluted. We have, 6:30's been continued till,
Okay. I'll get there. Yeah, so 6:30 is the 234 Taylor Street Sanctuary Medicinals. If you would continue that to the meeting of Thursday, February 1st. Whatever time. Put this one, I would suggest putting this one a little later because they weren't sure. They're meeting with Board of Health
Okay.
end of January. So if we say 7:30 for this one?
okay, you're gonna leave?
yeah, I gotta go.
We only have one more real thing.
Yeah.
We don't need to go. Thank you, Lisa. See you in a month. Okay, so we have continued public hearing for an we have an amended site plan, 6 Spectrum Road, Jason Builders LLC. You guys remember, this was the industrial site right by the old town dump, right in front of the dump.
You've got it.
The stone yard.
Yeah, next to the stone yard.
Next to the stone yard, across from the aggregate pit. So for the record, I'm Seth Donahoe with Dillis and Roy Civil Design Group. We were before you about a year ago, where the board approved a consolidated permit, site plan approval for what is a office building with storage beneath, and is also the old Lennox site. So when you drive by it always had piles of loam and materials there. And what I'm here for you tonight is to ask for a minor amendment. We have some minor changes to the building with very minimal changes to the site layout. And Marin's been kind enough to put up our highlighted plan, where anything in green is something that is consistent with the board's prior decision, and the yellow and orange call-outs are things that have changed. And I also have individual handouts of these if any of the board members would prefer to see it on a paper copy as well. In short, what our client is proposing is the exact same building in the exact same location, with the exception that we had a stepped garage elevation on the approved plan. We're requesting this change to allow for a consistent slab elevation. They've decided that'll be more consistent with what they're going to use the building for and easier for them to construct. Doing that consistent slab elevation where the higher elevation was closest to Spectacle Pond Road, and then every 2 units the slab dropped 1.8 feet. We are required to modify the parking lot to maintain our ADA access and the sidewalk in front of the building. And to do that, we have raised the parking lot slightly and also eliminated a exit row that is on the westerly side of the building. So now we only have one way in and out of the site, and that's on the side of the building, which is through an access easement. It's essentially an industrial area that has very limited traffic going up and down, and that's where the cursor was, right there. And those orange changes that you're seeing related to that would be a guardrail around the parking lot, which wasn't there previously. And there's also a fencing that would be a building code element that would be required. Very limited visibility on these. Again, it's on the side of the building on a road, an access road that only goes to another industrial site. There's no residential uses abutting us. All the screening that was proposed with our originally approved plan is to remain in place, and there's very few other minor changes related to that. So that is why I'm here in a nutshell. If the board has any specific questions related to the amended plans that we've put forward, I'd be happy to address them.
So I would have added that there's less impervious surface proposed than there was.
Yeah, I appreciate the cliff notes on that. So it is a 700, just over 700 square foot reduction in impervious area. Again, we're removing one of the driveway accesses to the site. So that lets us have less impervious area, but we're not changing the size of the stormwater management system. So that was reviewed by the peer reviewer. We'll still meet all of those protections and actually exceed it now because we'll have a lower rate and volume of runoff going to that system.
So does that affect the fire department review at all, or?
So this site is unique. It's very flat, and the fire apparatus would still have the ability to go around the back side of the building. That was the concern in the original portion of the project. Is if you go by it now, it has some makeshift structures that are serving as office or whatever they're using to monitor their site. It's hard to envision that as you go by, but yes, you can pull in. It's a full width 2-way driveway to pull in, and the apparatus would have the opportunity to pull in front of the building or pull around the building, plenty of room to turn around. They are using heavy equipment on the site too, so if a large loader or a large excavator can maneuver there, a larger fire apparatus can as well.
It's a good sign that I cannot even barely see the changes you've made. I think that making it a single level is good. It's more commercial. It's, more flexible for, tenants. I guess my only thing is, can we condition it based on some kind of formal fire department review other than your assertion?
We don't have any problem with that.
Okay.
That was actually a condition of the original permit.
Okay.
We were required to coordinate with
Great.
the water department and fire department.
Then I have
So-
no problems.
The original conditions of approval will still stand with this. These
Yeah.
are just changes to the.
Yeah, we're not looking to change any of the conditions that
Okay.
came along with
Fine.
this. This is basically some minor interior
Cosmetic.
modifications that triggered some slight changes on the outside of the building as well.
Do you have a occupant yet?
I don't know. I'm only on the design side of things, so
Oh, come on.
no, I really don't.
This is gonna be like, construction condominiums, right? Isn't that what the concept is?
Essentially, yeah, so I mean, it's
Could be a bunch of different people, siding people, roofing, all
a
that.
plumber,
Yeah.
it's a bay that they can pull their equipment in, keep it inside, and then have the opportunity for an office space
Which is
upstairs.
in dire need. There's no places like that around. There's a couple in here, but that's about it.
No, see, I
They'll have
think
no
it's,
problem renting that. Or they will, Jeanson's will. Any other questions or concerns?
No.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the this amended site plan as
Second?
presented. Okay, all those in favor, signify by, no, I'll do it by roll call again. Bartlett,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you.
thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Okay, boy, we're flying now. So like at 7 o'clock, continue public hearing, major industrial has been continued to the 1st of February as well.
Yep, they've requested a continuance, and till Thursday, where am I, February 1st. I would suggest we do this one at like 7 o'clock.
Okay. Whatever you want, Lauren, it's your day.
That was easy.
Last but not least is update whether we want to continue with the discussion of limiting grow facilities in the town of Littleton.
So what I did was reached out to Town Council Ivrea Freed. If you recall, she was the marijuana expert that we used when we drafted and then updated the most recent marijuana bylaw, and she's going to provide a written summary of the process that the planning board would have to go through in order to make that change, including just double checking if it requires just town meeting vote or if it also requires a ballot vote. She was going to check on that
We
for
have
us.
clickers now.
Well, there you go.
Well, that would be the ballot vote, right? Isn't that what takes place though? Yeah.
Right, but with the CCC, with the state regulations changing so often, she's going to just do that double check for us.
Okay.
And so is she looking at just cultivator, or is she looking at anything else?
You asked for cultivator.
Okay.
I think it's related to the complaints we get. I mean, this is great. We need to, follow through.
Well, this was related to the fact that there was another one potentially going to go where the marijuana distribution facility was, and the residents were all up. That's what, but it's not so much from sanctuary, it's from the potential of having another grower there. Remember, they wanted to put collective, yeah, wanted to put.
Well, yeah, and then
that's what
they
started going.
withdrew it, but, yeah. But, I mean, I think we should go through the motions of whatever is recommended.
I don't see it as a big deal. All we can just put down one, no more growth facilities. I mean, how hard is that? Right?
Yep.
So, anyway,
Yep,
okay.
she'll help walk us through it since it is such
That's
a
an easy
complex
one,
issue.
yeah.
Oh,
We can
yes
get
and
that.
no.
We can get that on for May. That'll make it look like
Yeah.
we've done a lot of stuff this year. Anything else? Are we done for the night?
So we have, yes.
I
Excuse me.
move,
Are we adjourned?
we adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we can do that by aye.